The potato war started in October 2019 and ended 8 months later in June of 2020. But what if it started on Skyblock day 1? How long would it take, and can we improve on the methods that they used? So let's go back to 2019 and start a profile in Hypixel Skyblock with the sole purpose of getting 500 million digital potatoes in a game which isn't even a communist simulator. Just to make everything consistent, I'm gonna assume that the number of hours played per day is 6. Now, I don't have anywhere close to that amount of free time, so for the sole purpose of this video, our character will be an average Skyblock player. So let's start farming potatoes, right? Well, in the best case scenario, you could just start farming and sell the crops to buy materials for unique minions. But the bazaar doesn't exist yet, and people don't have those things, so they can't sell them on the auction house. Because of this, and the need to get minion slots as early as possible, the best thing is to grind for the materials for more minions ourselves. To get unique minions, our player should grind to upgrade every minion until about level 4. Then we split the minions into categories. The ones that you can buy the materials for from NPCs, which we will not put down like at all. The ones that can use a compactor or just fill up very slowly, which we will put down right as we get them. And the rest, which require a super compactor, and so we'll have to wait a little bit more before we can put them down. Some crucial minions for later are redstone minions for compactors and super compactors, coal minions for fuel, clay minions to upgrade themselves because there is no other way to get clay, and the glowstone minion. Our player will need at least 3 redstone minions, but for the rest, 1 minion should be more than enough. I know I said to not put down minions like iron because you can just buy the materials, but you do need to get the recipe for the enchanted variant. So for the iron minion we need the enchanted iron recipe because we can't just buy enchanted iron. And some of those grinds are very slow manually. So our player will need to put a couple of them for a little while. After about 12 days of grinding and managing his minions, our player should be done with this part and move on to get super compactors. To get the super compactors efficiently, our player will need to suffer a little bit. And that's because the best way to get the cobblestone is a cobblestone generator. But not this one, no. The teleport pads only came out a month after Skyblock started. Our poor player, but again, he's an average Skyblock player, will need to use this abomination. Now we are aiming for 24 minion slots, so our player will need 168 stacks of enchanted cobblestone for 24 super compactors. With an average of 550 enchanted cobble an hour, this will take a little less than 4 days. It might seem tough to use this machine 6 hours per day for 4 days straight, but let me remind you, our character is an average Skyblock player, with an impressive build of 0 social life, never going outside and never showering. He won't get worse, that's what I'm saying. Once we start getting super compactors, we can finally put down a potato minion and other fast minions. Which brings me to talk about minion upgrades. For the new minions with super compactors and for the minions that had a compactor before, the best upgrade is the diamond spreading. Otherwise, there isn't anything to put on them, like literally anything. The minion expander only gave the 5% increase after the Slayer update, and the flycatcher didn't even exist. The only other upgrade which is actually useful is the flint shovel. Yeah, no. After getting all the cobblestone, it's time to start farming. But first, we need to find the best method for farming potatoes, and to see if Techno and Squid actually did it in the optimal way. According to their videos, you could get at most 200,000 potatoes from just farming manually without minions. At first, this number looked very small to me. Surely there was a better way. And so I went to find the maximal amount of potatoes you can get. I knew that you can mine 20 blocks per second at max, but I didn't know the limit for replanting. If they were the same, which I assume that they were, or at least very close, you could get 500,000 potatoes per hour. Even if you include crafting enchanted potatoes, because back in my... No, I can't do it, because in the past there was no personal compactor. Even so, it's still way too much of a difference. I tried looking it up to confirm my suspicions, but even when I searched for the limit of regular Minecraft, I found nothing, absolutely nothing. I had to test it for myself and see what's up. The results were very surprising. It wasn't 20 blocks per second, not even close. I was able to replant about 5 blocks per second, which checks out. The maximum that way is about 210,000 potatoes an hour. So if you factor crafting potatoes and human error, a limit of 200,000 potatoes per hour is very plausible. That means that Techno and Squid did farm in the optimal way. And if you even think of, well, I can right click faster than 5 times per second. No, you can't. Doing so 4 hours a day, for months, you just can't do it. It's not possible. Now, some of you are rightfully saying that yes, if you are already farming potatoes, this is the best method. But everyone knows that farming pumpkins is better, right? Well, yes, but not how Squid and Techno did it. If you want to farm manually 500 million potatoes as fast as possible, you should farm pumpkins until farming 47, not 50. And we want less than 500 million because we have minions. And so it's even lower than that. This means that both of them could have done it better. But come on, at that time they didn't know how long it will take, so it makes sense that they farmed pumpkins until level 50. This means that I need to build a pumpkin farm, grind until some level lower than 47, build a potato farm, and then grind until 500 million potatoes. I said I, but what I really mean is I'm just gonna say that our player did it because I really don't want to do this all myself. Sadly, the Builder Wand only came out on October 20th, 2020, which means that building the farm will be a nightmare. Luckily for my imaginary friend, our player, this is the perfect timing. That's because 15 days after the release of the game, the magical soup was added, making the time required to build one layer about 3.5 hours. And I don't know about you, but spending 3.5 hours building a farm for a stupid video is worth a sub. Oh, you thought I did that? No. It is worth a sub, but I just built like 4 rows and then calculated how long it will take for the rest. The most important thing about making the first layer, listen carefully because this is crucial, is that you can save 10 whole minutes, 600 seconds, and even 40,000 coins by building the pumpkin farm at the top so you don't have to light it. So an infinite farm, which is 2 layers, will take a little more than 1 day. I did some rough calculations and found that you should get to about farming 44 from pumpkins and then continue with potatoes. This will take in total about 103 hours, so when you include maintaining your minions, it will take about 19 days. After subtracting the amount it takes to get the pumpkin minion to level 11, we are left with 16 million pumpkins. So in the worst case scenario, where you sell it to the NPC, this is 64 million coins. Our player would probably be the first one to get over 50 million coins in Skyblock, which is kinda crazy. With all this money, we can buy materials for minions from the NPC to get very close to 21 minion slots, and still have 22 million coins left to buy catalysts when the end update drops. Talking about the end update, we need to talk about fuel for the minions before getting the catalyst. At first I thought to put a couple of coal minions and get enchanted lava buckets, but at this point we are 34 days after the release of Skyblock, only 18 days away from the end update and the catalyst. Putting all this work for lava buckets just isn't worth it. Then why did I say to put down coal minions for fuel? Well, the fuel I was referring to was the enchanted charcoal, giving a 20% increase, only 5% less, for very cheap. After all this hard work with pumpkins, it's time to make a 1-layer potato farm, which takes about 4 hours. And then we need to start farming 6 hours per day, believe me, for months. But we are ignoring an important thing: speed. At the beginning of Hypixel Skyblock, it was much more difficult to get speed, and so I sat there and tried to think of farming methods which require little to no speed. Now, potato farming is much easier. The most common method requires only 100 speed, which is easily achievable. You just need to... But for pumpkins, the usual method is 255 speed, which is a lot. Now, if I did it in the opposite way, farming potatoes until level 44 and then pumpkins, I could just use the farmer boots, which would give me 160 speed. But in my case, what will I use at farming level 10, for example, where the farmer boots give 40 speed? So I tested pumpkin farming and found that the lowest speed to still farm 20 blocks per second is about 180. Still not quite enough. But soon I remembered that potions exist, immediately solving the problem without even needing the farmer boots. Hi, editor note here, it's very good that we don't need the farmer boots, because at the time I didn't know that the farmer boots weren't out yet. Now the thing is, you'll need a lot of potions, which is exactly why I said that glowstone minion is important earlier on, and why I included getting the potion affinity artifact and alchemy 15 in the first 12 days of grinding. Anyway, after 18 days of farming potatoes, upgrading potato minions and buying materials for more minions in the auction house, our player should have 22 minion slots occupied by 22 potato 11 minions. This is possible because every day we get an average of 1 million coins from 6 hours of farming and 300,000 coins from the minions. So after 18 days, our player has a total of 24 million potatoes, leaving us with 7 million after spending 17 on 21 potato 11 minions. This is great because it means our player can sell those potatoes by crafting them into hot potato books and use that money to get the 23rd and 24th minion slot. The end update is a game changer for our little minion. While other players try to get their hands on some summoning eyes, he crafts an endstone minion and buys 160,000 endstone to upgrade it to level 11. After 6 days, the minion will unlock the recipe for the catalyst. This should be enough time for players to start selling crystal fragments and for us to get the 2 remaining minion slots for a total of 24 potato 11 minions powered with catalysts. So far we have been very fast, getting 24 potato 11 minions, farming 44 and 30 million potatoes. This led me to believe that if Techno and Squid started farming pumpkins and then potatoes earlier, they could have gotten a lot more potatoes. Even with farming 2 to 3 hours per day, this is a very decent money making method, which would let them get minion slots while still farming potatoes. Sadly, for our situation, we kinda reached the limit for now. Our player is farming in the best way possible and the minion setup is totally maxed out. But yet, he only gets 2 million potatoes per day. And so for the next 2 months, our player just continues to farm potatoes in the same way, saving money from selling hot potato books because he'll need it for the next update. Right as the update drops, our player gets 24 minion expanders for a nice 5% increase, and then he actually has to play the game to get to Tarantula level 6, which is required for crafting the flycatcher. Luckily, money is not a problem, as these 2 months got us at least 350 million coins and brought our potato collection to 160 million. Now I assume that getting to level 6 would take around 3 days, and then another week of putting 2 hours per day to buy all the materials needed for 24 total flycatchers. But the Slayer update also brought us the foul flesh, and I was very curious to know if you could use the method Techno used, even with no rabbit pet, flycatcher boost only being 10% instead of 20, and farming 46 instead of 50. Yes, you heard me right. In 87 days of farming potatoes, 87, our farming level was increased by 2. Just to be clear, 2 levels in 520 hours. Potatoes really are incredibly inefficient in upgrading farming. Surprisingly, even without having all those things, this method is still more efficient. Instead of 180 potatoes per hour because we are not level 50, we can get 255,000 per hour after subtracting how much the minions produce. But then, I found out that the foul flesh only became a minion fuel on December 3rd. So, that's a problem. I tried the same with the hamster wheel and got 192,000 potatoes an hour, which is an improvement, but still not nearly as good as the foul flesh. So until the 3rd of December, our player is continuing to grind in our method, getting 2.2 million potatoes per day. And when we get to December 3rd, our potato collection is 269 million. So our player swaps the hamster wheels for the foul flesh, increasing the potato yield to 2.66 million per day. This method continues for 80 days until the pet update, bringing our total to 482 million potatoes. The pet update immediately increases our yield to 3.14 million per day. That's because the boost from the flycatchers increased from 10 to 20%. This means that in 6 days we will get 500 million potatoes. But our player can do it in 5 days by getting a new legendary rabbit and upgrading it with alchemy to about level 75. This will take about 3 hours but will buff the daily yield to 4 million per day, allowing us to do it in 5 days total. And the funniest thing? We still have 2 weeks of farming until level 50. This whole thing took 260 days for 500 million potatoes, which is very close to the actual time the potato war took. While we optimized potato farming to the absolute max with the prior knowledge of what happened, they just had more update which increased the efficiency of farming potatoes. In the last 2 weeks of the war, Techno farmed 185 million potatoes, and our players spent 1500 hours farming manually for just 300,000 potatoes per hour. The lesson here is very simple. To be very honest, I wanted to say don't be an average Skyblock player, but on average you are, so watch the next video. Come on, it's a good one.